Sometimes the smallest moments change everything. A single word spoken without thinking, a thoughtless answer given in haste, a truth revealed before its time. On a bright Tuesday afternoon in February 2024, Marcus Williams stood at the Family Feud podium, ready to answer what seemed like the simplest question in the world. He had no idea that his answer would shatter his family, expose a painful truth, and leave him carrying regret for the rest of his life. Steve Harvey had seen many emotional moments on his show. He had witnessed tears of joy and disappointment. He had watched families celebrate victories and handle losses with grace. But what he was about to witness would haunt him for years. A moment when honesty became cruelty, when truth destroyed what lies had carefully protected, and when a good man made a choice he could never take back. Before we begin this powerful story, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We share the most impactful family feud moments that remind us how fragile life really is. Marcus Williams was 47 years old, a devoted father and loving husband from Memphis, Tennessee. He worked as a high school history teacher, the kind of educator who stayed late to help struggling students and showed up early to coach the debate team. His colleagues called him dedicated. His students called him inspiring. His family called him their rock. Standing beside him at the Family Feud podium was his wife of 23 years, Corinne Williams, a 45-year-old hospice nurse with a gentle spirit and endless patience. She had spent 2 decades caring for people in their final days, bringing comfort to families facing the hardest goodbye. Her compassion was legendary in their community. Her dedication to her work was matched only by her devotion to her family. The Williams family had come to Family Feud as a celebration. Their daughter, Jasmine, had just been accepted to Princeton University. Their son, Marcus Jr., was thriving as a sophomore at Howard University. This game show appearance was meant to be a fun family memory, maybe even help with college expenses if they won. It was supposed to be joy. It was supposed to be simple, but hidden in their family story was a truth that everyone had agreed to protect. A painful reality that had been carefully managed for 21 years. A secret that Corinne and Marcus had decided together to keep from their children until they were both emotionally ready to hear it. 21 years earlier, when Jasmine was just 2 years old, Corinne had been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. The prognosis had been grim, a 40% 5-year survival rate. She had endured months of brutal chemotherapy, radiation that left her skin burned and her body weak, and a double mastectomy that had saved her life but left her feeling broken. During those dark months, Marcus had been her everything. He had cared for their toddler daughter, worked full-time, driven Corinne to every appointment, held her through every treatment, and never once let her see his fear. He had been strong when she couldn't be. He had been hope when she had none. But the cancer and the treatment had consequences neither of them had anticipated. The chemotherapy had destroyed Corinne's fertility. The doctors told them gently, carefully, that she would never be able to have another child. For Corinne, who had dreamed of a large family, this news had been almost as devastating as the cancer diagnosis itself. Marcus Jr. had been born 3 years after Corinne's cancer treatment ended, but he hadn't been born the way Jasmine had. He had been conceived through IVF using donor eggs. Corinne had carried him, birthed him, nursed him, raised him. In every way that mattered, she was his mother. But biologically, genetically, half of his DNA came from an anonymous 23-year-old graduate student who had donated her eggs to help families like theirs. Corinne and Marcus had made a decision together when Marcus Jr. was born. They would tell him the truth when he was old enough to understand. When he was mature enough to process what it meant. When they felt he was ready. They had planned to tell both children together. Jasmine would learn about her mother's cancer battle. Marcus Jr. would learn about his unique beginning. They had imagined having this conversation when the kids were in college, when they were adults, when they could understand the love and sacrifice behind every choice. They had never imagined that the secret would be revealed on national television. They had never imagined that Marcus would be the one to expose it, and they had certainly never imagined it would happen like this. The Williams family had been doing well on Family Feud. They had won the first 2 rounds with solid answers and good teamwork. The energy was high, the mood was celebratory. Steve Harvey had been joking with them between rounds, charmed by their obvious affection for each other and their supportive family dynamic. Round 3 began with Marcus and Corinne both at the podium for the face-off against the competing family. Steve Harvey looked at his card and read the survey question with his characteristic charm. Name something a parent might say is the hardest part of raising children. It was a standard Family Feud question, the kind designed to get humorous or heartfelt answers. The kind of question that usually led to responses like the terrible twos, or paying for college, or teaching them to drive. The kind of question that shouldn't have caused any problems. Marcus buzzed in first. Steve turned to him with a smile. Marcus, what do you think? Name something a parent might say is the hardest part of raising children. And Marcus, without thinking, without pausing, without considering that his children were watching from the family section, without remembering the careful plans he and Karen had made, answered from his heart instead of his head. Keeping secrets from them, Marcus said. The words hung in the air. Steve Harvey nodded and said, keeping secrets, good answer. The board flipped to reveal that it was indeed on the survey, number 4 with 12 points. The audience applauded. The game continued for another few seconds, but Karen had frozen. Her face had gone completely pale. She looked at Marcus with an expression of pure horror. He saw it immediately and realized what he had done. In the family section, 20-year-old Marcus Jr. had sat up straighter, his expression curious. 23-year-old Jasmine had turned to look at her brother, then back at their parents on stage. The game continued, but Marcus could barely focus. His mind was racing. Why had he said that? Why had that been his first thought? He knew the answer, because it had been weighing on him for 20 years. The secret about Marcus Jr.'s conception had become heavier with each passing year. Every time his son asked about family medical history, every time someone commented on how much Marcus Jr. looked like his father, every time they sat down for a family dinner and Marcus felt the weight of the unspoken truth. After the round ended, Steve Harvey called for a commercial break. As soon as the cameras cut, Marcus turned to Karen. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't think, I just answered. Karen's eyes were filled with tears. They're going to ask, you know they're going to ask now. And she was right. As soon as the family had a moment together backstage, Marcus Jr. approached his parents. His expression was serious, concerned. Dad, what did you mean about keeping secrets? What secrets? Jasmine stood beside her brother, equally curious. Yeah, that was a weird answer. Is everything okay? Marcus and Karen looked at each other. They had planned this conversation 1,000 times in their heads. They had imagined doing it at home in a quiet moment with time to explain everything carefully. They had wanted to be ready. They had wanted their children to be ready, but none of that mattered now. The question had been asked, and Marcus, seeing the confusion and concern on his children's faces, made a decision. He decided to tell the truth, right there, right then. There's something we need to tell you both, Marcus began. Something we've been planning to tell you for a long time, but we were waiting for the right moment. Karen grabbed his arm. Marcus, wait, not here, not like this. But Marcus shook his head. We can't put it off anymore, they deserve to know. He took a deep breath and looked at his children. When Jasmine was 2 years old, your mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. She went through chemotherapy and radiation and surgery. She survived, thank God. But the treatment left her unable to have more children naturally. Jasmine's hand went to her mouth. Marcus Jr. looked confused. But I was born after that, he said slowly. You were, Marcus said. Through IVF, your mother carried you, she gave birth to you, she is your mother in every way that matters. Marcus Jr. was processing this information. So you used a donor egg? Karen was crying now. Yes, we used a donor egg. You're our son. You've always been our son. We just wanted to wait until you were ready to hear this story. The silence that followed was devastating. Marcus Jr.'s expression had changed from confusion to something else, hurt, betrayal, shock. My whole life is a lie, he said quietly. No, Marcus said firmly. Your life isn't a lie. We're your parents. We love you. Nothing about how you were conceived changes that. But I'm not really your son, Marcus Jr. said, looking at Karen. Not biologically, not really. The pain on Karen's face was unbearable to watch. You are my son, she said, her voice breaking. I carried you for 9 months. I felt you kick. I gave birth to you. I nursed you. I raised you. You are my son in every way that matters. But you lied to me, Marcus Jr. said, his voice rising. My whole life you lied to me. Every time someone said I had mom's eyes or dad's intelligence, you both just went along with it. You let me believe something that wasn't true. Jasmine had been quiet, processing everything. Now she spoke up. Why didn't you tell us? Why keep it secret? We were going to tell you, Marcus said. We had always planned to tell you. We just wanted to wait until you were both old enough to understand, until you were mature enough to process what it meant. I'm 20 years old, Marcus Jr. said. How much older did I need to be? Karen reached for her son, but he stepped back. I need some time, he said. I need to think about this. He walked away, leaving his parents standing there with Jasmine. The daughter looked at her parents with tears in her eyes. You should have told him sooner, she said. He deserved to know. Steve Harvey had been watching from a distance, understanding that something serious was happening. He approached carefully. I don't know what's going on, he said gently, but I can see this family is hurting. Do you need to stop the taping? Do you need time? Marcus shook his head. No. We'll finish. We owe that to the show. But his heart was breaking. He had done this. His careless answer, his moment of thoughtlessness, had exposed a secret before his family was ready. He had hurt his son. He had put his wife through agony, and he couldn't take it back. The taping resumed, but the joy was gone. The Williams family went through the motions, answering questions mechanically. They won their round, but there was no celebration. When they advanced to fast money, Marcus and Corinne played together, but there was a distance between them now. The easy partnership from earlier in the show had been replaced by tension and pain. They won $20,000. The audience applauded. Steve Harvey congratulated them. But as the cameras stopped rolling and the Williams family gathered their things to leave, Marcus could see the damage he had done. His son wouldn't look at him. His wife was crying quietly. His daughter seemed confused and hurt. One careless answer, one moment of speaking without thinking, and he had changed everything. The drive back to the hotel was silent. Marcus Jr. sat in the back seat, staring out the window. Jasmine tried to make conversation a few times, but gave up when she got only one-word responses. Corinne sat in the passenger seat, her arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller and more fragile than Marcus had ever seen her. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in bed replaying the moment over and over. Why had he answered like that? Why hadn't he thought before speaking? He had taught his students about the power of words, about thinking before acting. How had he forgotten his own lessons at the moment that mattered most? Around 2 a.m., there was a knock on their hotel room door. It was Marcus Jr. His eyes were red from crying. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. Three of them sat in the hotel room, Marcus Jr. In the chair, Corinne and Marcus on the edge of the bed. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Marcus Jr. broke the silence. "I've been thinking all night," he said, "about what it means, about who I am, about whether I'm really your son or just someone you raised." Corinne started to speak, but Marcus Jr. held up his hand. "Let me finish, please." He took a deep breath. "I remember when I was 8 years old, I got really sick, pneumonia. I was in the hospital for a week. Mom, you didn't leave my side. You slept in that uncomfortable chair next to my bed every single night. You sang to me when I couldn't sleep. You held my hand during every treatment." Corinne was crying again, but she nodded. "I remember when I was 12, Marcus Jr. continued, and I got in trouble at school for fighting. Dad, you didn't yell at me. You sat me down and we talked for 3 hours about anger and justice and how to stand up for what's right without using violence. You helped me understand that being strong doesn't mean being violent." Marcus felt tears streaming down his own face now. "I remember 1,000 moments like that," Marcus Jr. said. "Mom teaching me to cook, Dad helping me with my history homework, both of you at every basketball game, every debate competition, every school play. Both of you proud of me when I got into Howard. Both of you supporting me when I changed my major 3 times trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life." He looked at his parents. "Those memories are real. That love is real. And I realized tonight that it doesn't matter that we don't share all the same DNA. It doesn't matter that I was conceived in a lab instead of, naturally. What matters is that you chose me. You wanted me. You fought to have me. And you've loved me every day of my life." Corinne let out a sob and reached for her son. This time he didn't pull away. He let her hold him, and Marcus wrapped his arms around both of them. "I'm still hurt that you didn't tell me sooner," Marcus Jr. said, his voice muffled against his mother's shoulder. "I wish I had known. I wish you had trusted me with the truth." "We're sorry," Corinne said. "We thought we were protecting you. We thought waiting was the right thing to do, but we were wrong. We should have told you years ago." Marcus spoke up, his voice heavy with regret. "I'm sorry I told you like that. I'm sorry I answered that question without thinking. I've been carrying the weight of this secret for so long that when Steve asked about the hardest part of parenting, that's what came out. But you deserved better. You deserved to learn this truth in a better way." They sat like that for a long time, holding each other and crying. Finally, Marcus Jr. pulled back and wiped his eyes. "I have questions," he said. "A lot of questions about the donor, about the process, about everything." "We'll answer them all," Corinne promised. "No more secrets, no more waiting for the right time. Whatever you want to know, we'll tell you." The next morning, the family sat down for breakfast together. Jasmine joined them, and over coffee and pancakes, Corinne told both children the full story. She told them about the cancer diagnosis, the fear, the brutal treatments. She told them about the moment the doctor said she'd never have another biological child and how devastating that news had been. She told them about choosing a donor, about the IVF process, about the joy and terror of being pregnant again. She told them about holding Marcus Jr. for the first time and knowing, absolutely knowing, that he was her son in every way that mattered. Marcus shared his perspective too. He talked about being Corinne's caregiver during her cancer treatment, about his fear of losing her, about his joy when Marcus Jr. was born. He talked about why they had decided to keep it a secret, about their plan to tell the children when they were older, about the guilt he'd carried for years knowing the truth was hidden. Jasmine asked her own questions, processing the revelation about her mother's cancer and her brother's conception. "Why didn't you ever tell me about the cancer?" she asked Corinne. Because you were so young when it happened, Karen said. And when you got older, it felt like ancient history. I've been cancer-free for over 20 years. It didn't seem relevant to bring it up. But it is relevant, Jasmine said. It's part of our family history. It's part of who you are and who we are. These are things we should know. Karen nodded. You're right. We were so focused on protecting you both that we forgot you're strong enough to handle the truth. Before they left to fly home, Marcus pulled his son aside for a private conversation. I need you to know something, he said. I need you to know that answering that question on Family Feud was the biggest mistake of my life. Not because the truth came out, maybe it was time for that, but because of how it came out. You deserved better. You deserved for us to sit you down at home in private and tell you with love and care. Instead, I blurted it out on national television because I wasn't thinking. Marcus Jr. looked at his father. I forgive you, Dad. I'm still processing everything and it's going to take time, but I forgive you. Marcus felt a weight lift from his chest, even as he knew the regret would stay with him forever. He had been forgiven, but he would never forget the pain he had caused. The Family Feud episode aired 6 weeks later. The producers had debated whether to show it at all, given what had happened backstage. The Williams family had agreed to let it air with the hope that their story might help other families facing similar situations. The network added a special segment at the end, filmed a few weeks after the original taping. Steve Harvey sat down with the Williams family to talk about what had happened and how they were healing. Marcus, Steve said during that interview, you've said you regret how the truth came out. Can you talk about that? Marcus took a deep breath. Every parent makes mistakes. But my mistake was broadcast to millions of people. I answered a simple question without thinking, and in doing so, I revealed a family secret before my son was ready to hear it. I will carry that regret for the rest of my life. He looked at Marcus Jr., sitting beside him. But my son has shown me grace that I don't deserve. He's forgiven me, and we're working together as a family to heal from this. Marcus Jr. spoke up. What my dad did wasn't ideal. But the truth was going to come out eventually, and maybe this was how it was supposed to happen. Maybe I needed to be shocked into understanding how much my parents love me, how much they went through to have me. Karen added her perspective. As a hospice nurse, I've seen a lot of families deal with regret at the end of life. People regret the things they didn't say, the truths they didn't share, the time they wasted. What happened on Family Feud was painful, but it forced us to have conversations we should have had years ago. In that sense, maybe it was a blessing in disguise. The episode resonated deeply with viewers. Thousands of families reached out to share their own stories of secrets, revelations, and healing. Fertility clinics reported an increase in parents asking for guidance on when and how to tell donor-conceived children about their origins. Mental health professionals used the Williams family's story in their practice, discussing the importance of age-appropriate honesty with children and the dangers of keeping secrets, even with good intentions. Marcus became an advocate for donor-conceived children and their families. He spoke at conferences for fertility clinics, sharing his story and urging parents to tell their children the truth early and often, rather than waiting for a perfect moment that might never come. The hardest part of parenting, he would often say, using the exact question from Family Feud, is not keeping secrets from your children. It's finding the courage to tell them the truth even when the truth is complicated, even when the truth is hard, even when you're afraid of how they'll react. Marcus Jr. joined his father in this advocacy work. He spoke from the perspective of a donor-conceived child, sharing both the pain of learning the truth suddenly and the healing that came from understanding his parents' love and sacrifice. Finding out I was donor-conceived was a shock, he would tell audiences. But it didn't change who I am. It didn't change my relationship with my parents. What it did was help me understand my mother's strength in surviving cancer and my parents' determination to build their family despite the obstacles they faced. He would pause, then add, I wish I had been told sooner. I wish my parents had trusted me with the truth when I was younger, but I understand why they were scared. And I'm grateful that, despite the imperfect way it came out, we were finally able to be completely honest with each other. Karen also found her voice in the conversation. She began speaking to cancer survivor groups about life after treatment, including the difficult topic of infertility and family building options. She helped countless women navigate the emotional journey of using donor eggs or adoption to grow their families. I carried shame about my infertility for years, she would share. I felt like less of a woman because I couldn't have more biological children, but carrying my son, giving birth to him, raising him, that made me his mother. Biology is just one way to build a family. Love is what truly makes a family. Jasmine, who had been somewhat overlooked in the immediate aftermath of the revelation, found her own role in the family's healing. She became the bridge, helping her brother process his feelings while supporting her parents through their guilt and regret. Being the fully biological child in this situation gave me a unique perspective, she explained in one interview. I wasn't dealing with questions about my identity the way my brother was. But I was dealing with the revelation that my mother had survived cancer when I was too young to remember, and that my parents had been keeping a major secret for my entire life. She continued, "What I learned is that families are complicated. Parents make mistakes, but love covers a multitude of errors, and forgiveness is always possible if everyone is willing to be honest and vulnerable." 1 year after the Family Feud episode aired, the Williams family returned for a follow-up interview. The change in their family dynamic was visible. They seemed more relaxed, more open, more at peace with their story. Steve Harvey asked them the question everyone wanted to know. Has this experience made you stronger as a family, or did it damage relationships that can never be fully repaired? Marcus answered first. Both, honestly. The way it happened caused damage. It caused pain. I will always regret blurting out that answer without thinking. I will always wish I had told my son the truth in a better way. He paused. But it also forced us to confront something we had been avoiding for too long. It made us have conversations we should have had years ago. And in working through the pain together, we became closer. We became more honest. We became the family we should have been all along. Karen added, I've learned that you can't protect your children from every painful truth. Sometimes the attempt to protect them causes more harm than the truth itself would have. Our children are strong enough to handle hard truths. We should have trusted them sooner. Marcus Jr. had the last word. My dad's answer on Family Feud that the hardest part of parenting is keeping secrets from your children, that was true, and it turned out to be prophetic. The secret was hard for my parents to keep, and it was hard for me to learn. But once it was out in the open, once we could all be honest with each other, the hardest part was over. The Williams family's story became a case study in the power of honesty and the danger of well-intentioned secrets. Universities teaching family dynamics used their experience as an example. Therapists recommended their follow-up interviews to clients struggling with similar issues. But for Marcus Williams personally, the regret never fully faded. Yes, his family had healed. Yes, his relationship with his son was strong. Yes, good had come from the revelation. But he would forever remember the look on Marcus Jr.'s face when he learned the truth. He would forever carry the knowledge that his careless answer had caused his son pain. In quiet moments, Marcus would return to that day on the Family Feud stage. He would replay the moment when Steve Harvey asked the question. He would imagine taking a breath, pausing, thinking before answering. He would imagine giving a different response, something safe, something that wouldn't expose the family secret. But then he would remember what his son had said. Maybe this was how it was supposed to happen. Maybe they needed the shock, the pain, the forced honesty. Maybe comfortable secrets needed to be uncomfortable truths. 5 years after the episode aired, Marcus was invited to speak at a conference for adoptive and donor-conceived families. Before going on stage, he sat in the green room with his son, now 25 years old and thriving in his career as a social worker, helping other families navigate difficult conversations. Dad, Marcus Jr. said, I want you to know something. You've apologized 1,000 times for how I found out about being donor-conceived, but I want you to stop carrying that guilt. What you did on Family Feud wasn't malicious, it wasn't intentional, it was human. You made a mistake and then you spent 5 years making it right. He put his hand on his father's shoulder. I forgave you years ago, it's time you forgave yourself. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. I don't know if I can, I look at you and I remember the hurt in your eyes that day. Then look at me now, Marcus Jr. said. Look at the man I've become. Look at the work we're doing together to help other families. That hurt you caused, it turned into something meaningful. It turned into purpose. Don't let the regret overshadow the redemption. On stage that day, Marcus told his story one more time. But this time, he told it differently. He didn't just focus on the mistake, the regret, the pain. He also talked about the healing, the growth, the unexpected blessings that came from his worst moment. A simple answer led to a lifetime of regret, he told the audience. But it also led to a lifetime of honesty. It led to deeper relationships with my children. It led to important conversations about secrets and truth. It led me and my family to become advocates for other families facing similar challenges. He paused, looking out at the audience of parents and children, all navigating the complex waters of adoption and donor conception. I will always wish I had handled things differently, Marcus said. I will always carry some regret for the pain I caused my son, but I've learned that regret doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of redemption. It can be the catalyst for change. It can be the foundation for something better. The Williams family's story continues to this day. They remain close, supporting each other through life's challenges and celebrating its joys. The secret that once divided them became the truth that united them. The pain that once threatened to break them became the foundation for a stronger, more honest family. And Marcus Williams, the man who made a simple mistake on a game show stage, learned that sometimes our worst moments can lead to our greatest growth, if we're brave enough to face them, humble enough to learn from them, and wise enough to use them to help others. The regret never fully disappeared, but it was joined by forgiveness, healing, and the knowledge that even our mistakes can become part of a larger purpose. That's the power of truth, the gift of grace, and the resilience of families who choose love over perfection. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We share powerful family feud moments that remind us of the importance of honesty, forgiveness, and the strength of family bonds. The end.